Hello, and welcome to Buffer Time, where we take a little downtime between assignments to talk about current episodes of Trek or whatever topic we see fit, really. This week, we're going to be discussing the concept of the Badmiral. But first, I figure we'll go around and introduce ourselves as we do. I'm Scott of the YouTube channel Opinions No One Cares About. Continue to... I always get this backwards. To my right with Del.
Oh, hi. I'm brand new to the live stream. So hi, my name is Del, and I have no YouTube channel, but I am a giant Star Trek nerd.
What's up, my know-it-alls? Mr. Know-it-all here. I am a lover of all things Star Trek. I do have a YouTube channel, but I'm really excited to talk about some Badmirals. Let's go.
All right.
And I'm Dustin from here on Best of Trek, Worst of Trek.
You're a gracious host.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. What was our first question? So what defines a Badmiral versus somebody just ill-suited to the post or easily manipulated? And that does actually make sense because a lot of the characters we're going to be talking about, technically, like, you can call them Badmirals, but they actually, committed their crimes or whatever before they ascended to the rank. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, but see, now I think just what you said just now. So a Badmiral we are defining as somebody who is. Are they doing something criminal? Is there darkness, bad evilness going on? Or they is that I assume the where we're setting that level?
I think it's really hard to have a hard and fast rule for this because there are so many levels of bad and evil for these admirals. Some of them are purely out for themselves. Most of them think they're doing the right thing and don't.
And some are just not well suited for the job. I think there are some that it just shows that they should be back maybe captaining a ship.
I get it. So it's bad as in I am bad, haha, with a mustache, or it's man, you are just a bad admiral. Like, yeah, I get it. Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I needed. Now that I understand that delineation, I think we're good. So right on.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
I mean, excellent choice here with the visual. Not technically an admiral, but you get Commodore Stalker. I'm sure he's a great Starfleet flag officer, but when push came to shove in that episode, he couldn't handle it out in the field.
Yeah,
he had never had he had never been in the captain's chair of a starship before. He had no idea what to do.
And we were talking about that actually right off before you showed up. Forgive me, Scott. We were talking about whether or not there are two kinds of these sorts of people like, say, your Janeways, your Kirks, your people who elevated up through the ranks and actually understand from ground up what is going on. And then there's other people who their nepotism and their families and they're just people who are like classic officer people who are like, well, my family's been officers. I've been to, North Point or whatever, you know what I mean? Or whatever that place is for officer training and think they understand it, but don't know anything. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's two different kinds. So that's, good call.
And as we're mentioning easily manipulated, there's Admiral Kennelly. I actually just watched this episode. I was doing some last minute brushing up. So yeah, you got Kennelly, he thought he was doing the right thing.
I'm actually looking over a list here. I went to anything. I'm looking over my list of admirals and stuff, my own notes as well. Yeah, man.
I know it's hindsight, but through a lot of that episode, everyone's asking, well, if the Bajorans didn't do this, who did? And just like, how do none of you realize it was the Cardassians?
Yeah, there were a lot of times where it was like that.
Cardassians, they're sworn enemies who spent decades, occupying their land and torturing them.
Mm-hmm.
What thought?
I also was very sidetracked in this episode because they kept referring to them as the Bajora.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the first Bajoran episode.
Right?
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Like Vulcanians.
Yes.
Right?
Or Klingon-y.
Those are awesome.
The Klingot.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Let's see.
I was wondering with him too if there wasn't an undercurrent of I'm breaking this Bajoran out of jail to send her on this peacekeeping thing with the Maquis.
Yep.
But by sending a low-level negotiator, it would have been a very easy route to be selling ammunitions and other stuff to to continue to sell stuff like that to the Bajorans, now selling it directly to the Maquis. In a way of sort of saying, like, really, in the end, we do support the Maquis, but politically, we have to kind of get behind the Cardassians just for now. So I found that really interesting with the idea of like trying to do the right thing and making a poor choice, or looking at him as someone who had like ulterior motives.
Well, I think we all know that the motivation behind tons of Star Trek is commentary on some level.
Yeah.
And I feel like that if you look at the time period that this was all happening in, there were a lot of those kinds of things happening in the like geopolitical world, where there were things we were saying, are we making these allies for good reasons or bad reasons? Is it a financial reason? Is it just because of this? I mean, there was a lot happening, and so you can't exactly suddenly have they got the head of Starfleet or whatever else. So what do? You put the command structure in question, and you say, okay, they're the ones who are making these, so you can still commentate on what's happening in the world and the culture around us.
Right.
So yeah, that makes total sense. Absolutely, good call, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as Kennelly, he's definitely on the lower end of Badmiral. I mean, he put out some Black Op type stuff, which could be considered bad, but more gray area. And he's a pawn and doesn't know it. That's his Badmiral failing.
Yeah.
He's naive.
He's a sucker.
He totally is.
Again, I think he falls sort of on the part of the spectrum of bad at your job.
Right.
There he is.
Okay, so I don't know. Do we want to go to the next question or start comparing, or just start going through by Admiral? What do you think?
However you want to do it, Scott. Maybe by Admiral?
I think so, yeah. I assume you got the clips? Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, so like I said, I provided a list of, Badmirals, whether they are or not. It started off with the movie ones. And really the earliest example I came up with was Admiral Cartwright.
Man.
Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
He makes a good gumbo.
I loved him.
It's so jarring because I was watching the ones, about Admiral Layton, and there he is as Sisko's dad,
Brock
just wanting to
Peters.
run his business.
One of the best actors Star Trek ever got.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love him a lot.
I love him as the preacher.
It's so funny. I saw a quick little sidebar fast about the actor. I saw a fan casting. Like if Justice League was made in the 80s or 90s or whatever, who would be who? He was set to be Martian Manhunter in this fan casting, and I was like,
yes.
I totally see it. I totally from that era. I was like, let's go. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go on. Nothing to do with this topic, but I love him as an actor.
Yeah, and that great act. His acting is just as good. When he's conspiring with the Federation's enemies to start a war.
See, but as much as this is so, I understand their motivation. I didn't agree with it, but I understood it. They were scared. They wanted to this or that. The fact that they were willing to partner up alone, that right there with the people that they didn't want to be partners with, I thought that was hilariously counterintuitive and productive to their cause. But that I think is obviously what makes that crossing that line, I feel like, is what makes him quote unquote a Badmiral. But I believe in his heart, he believed his cause was just. And that makes you go, golly, dude, how far off the mark were you, man? Because you're such a cool guy, and to deal with all this stuff.
And I'm sure in one way or another, they all do. Like they obviously believe they're on the side of right. It's just not a lot of other people are going to see that way.
Yeah. Agreed.
For me, Cartwright's like Rudy Giuliani. In Star Trek 4, he was the guy that was at the head of everything when something really bad happened to Earth, and he got painted in a great light, looked good for, a couple of years, and then decided that he wanted to go down some conspiracy theory rabbit holes. Yeah. Like one does.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and then you're right, because that's a great comparison, because you're absolutely right. Here he is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay, moving on. Star Trek Insurrection and Admiral Doherty. I feel like there's much less of a gray area here. I mean, he's just out for profit, wasn't he? with the metaphasic radiation. I love the whole idea of metaphasic, by the way, because apparently when it, is around a planet, it can keep you from aging. But then you apply it to shielding, and apparently you can survive inside a star.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah, I don't think he was out for himself. I think he thought he was doing something right for everybody, bring this magical fountain of youth technology to the galaxy. And it just went really wrong. It's kind of like Kennelly. He ended up being a pawn, but he's worse than Kennelly because he actually played into, going after the Enterprise E and stuff like that.
I think he was so I do. It's funny because my first I'm like, no, he's just a bad guy. Then I'm like, no, he's a profiteer. But then I remember the scene where he's literally telling dude, the real villain, like, all right, listen, I'm not ready to. We got to put a stop about this and that. Like he wants to stop because he realizes they've gone too far. But they're too far now. You can't go. You can't turn back. Yeah. And so that's the point where I think, okay, now you've now thrown everything out the window. I might have been able to be convinced of your motivations until that moment. And then you screwed yourself and us in the whole process. But I actually really love this movie, by the way.
Oh, okay. So DAM says maybe nitpicking, but in Ensign Road, Bajora was the specific terrorist group. I mean, was the Marquis first brought up in the two-parter by the same name? Wasn't Marquis? Was that one?
I think so. But I think you're right. Bajora was a name. That's right. Now that I got to see that episode again. You're right. It was the name of their group, their specific group of terrorists. Because this is obviously before we ever got the other group that we see later on in Deep Space Nine, episode 3, where it's funny. I'm doing a rewatch of Deep Space Nine, so I just saw the episode a while ago.
Yep.
Yeah, man, interesting.
I really like what Heart Attack Jack here has written. The road to hell. Good intentions are only intentions, but the process itself builds the road. That is,
there you go,
100%.
And that's why that's Dougherty right there all day. That's
the best of intentions, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the funny thing too is when you think about it, it's almost so. I would almost go in coming out of universe and going into production world. I would have questioned that story, that writer, and that story early on, and been like, "Are we saying that Starfleet hasn't extended lives, hasn't done I feel like in that Starfleet-esque or Federation-esque universe in the far-flung future, we would already be dealing and be happy with our lifespans and our health possibilities and bionic limb replacements and treatments for everything and within reason, obviously. And so the fact that he was so and I guess this is where you'd flip me as a storyteller. I would be like, but I guess it's interesting to see with all that I just said, they still, as human beings, just want to extend life a little more. Want to make it be. I still want more. And that speaks to the quote unquote avarice of humans. Well, just to be poetic. But anyways, right on. Really? Oh my god, I love this so much.
This chat today is just great.
Where did we get this poetic? I love it.
I love it.
That's awesome.
All right, let's move into a little less of a gray area with that warmonger Admiral Marcus.
See, we were okay. Now I'm glad we're here because right before you showed up and during the pre-talk, I was telling them that I feel like yes, he's bad, but I feel like his motivation is a giant effing Romulan mining ship came back in time and wasted things, and so now they're moving forward. And I think then it became he thinks he's Starfleet's Jack Bauer. My ends will justify the means. Period. I got to build this. We got to build a bigger gun. We got to be able to do this thing and this and that, and then it just goes downhill. Very similar to Dougherty from a second ago, but I think he went way harsher too, though. And having private security on the whatever that dark Enterprise-y, scary big bad ship was, because I've never seen a ship I've never seen a black colored Starfleet ship before, and that was rough. That thing's scary.
Yeah, and if I'm not too much mistaken, he fired on the Enterprise. Did he know his daughter was on it? at the time?
Not at first.
No.
I'm gonna say. It's been a little while since I've seen that one, but yeah.
But that definitely brings around that he is a Badmiral. He didn't care about the Starfleet crew that was on the ship. It was only when his daughter he finds out and pulls her off the ship. Marcus is, I mean, he had all the top brass at Starfleet killed. He brought Khan into this for no apparently good reason.
Exactly.
Whatever. Okay, I feel like you're stacking the deck against him. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding.
The last point is just more picking the movie than the Admiral himself. But Marcus is terrible.
And the fact that Kirk flat out is like, don't like, at least like, you want to take this and that, don't kill my crew, whatever, we'll figure this thing out. And he's like, no, you were never gonna make it. And I'm like, oh, that's it, you're a bad guy. You're a bad guy. 100%. I'm sorry, RoboCop. No. Let's go.
So yeah, I think it would be safe to say that, I think the movie Admirals, like, they tend to be a little more, I think they have a little less justification for what they do. I don't know if it's because it's a movie and you got to bypass some areas of character development, but
yeah.
Choice of targets is what makes
there you go.
Dying Klingons. Ooh. Romulans were waiting? Okay.
That is a good point.
It's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Let's see. Okay, let's bring it back to the TV. Right. Admiral Haftel of The Offspring.
Yeah, man.
No, okay. I fully admit that Haftel is doing his job. Like, when I rewatched this episode. It didn't change my opinion much of him, but I was identifying it way more because this is the first time I've seen it since I became a dad. I get where he's coming from, especially since Lal turned out to be like a little more advanced than Data when she was functioning properly.
Right.
But like, I put theft or kidnapping here because either, Data built her and she's his property, which means they're trying to steal her. Or if we're going by measure of a man and Data's a sentient being, then she's literally his daughter and it's kidnapping.
Okay. I recently, in a recent know-it-all files, it's a thing I do on my channel, I answered the question, should Data have been allowed, like, was Data the property of Starfleet ever? And the truth is, at one point in the beginning, he kind of was. They found him, they thought he was an advanced robot, only to then realize as he progresses and chooses to go into Starfleet that he clearly has some sort of sentience of some kind. Obviously, it wasn't until Measure of Man that they actually defined that. But I feel like this guy may be operating under the previous version of their thinking. And then, so I don't necessarily, I'm not justifying anything his actions, because by the way, in the episode, he's 100% a slime ball, and I don't like him at all. And I do feel very much like he's just trying to come and rip this kid out of his parents' hand. Okay. Yeah. But I'm trying to put myself in, because I've always been a believer that there are no real mustache twirling villains. You had to give Thanos motivation. You can't just have him worship death, just to use an example, to kind of give a side example. And so now so with this, I feel like his motivation was, well, wait a minute, these are machines. I guess they're advanced, but they're blah, blah, blah. And without really kind of taking into account the actual evolution that you just walked through. And he's speaking from a strictly scientific position, which is normally Starfleet's default, exploration. Now, I think you do always stumble upon strange new worlds and new life and all that stuff, because literally that's what Data has created and been. And I feel like there was especially when you look in hindsight at like Picard season 1, and you get this understanding of just how widespread the potential for, because at some point or another, and they never really tell us when this transition happens, we get service androids who are literally no better than just property. Yep. And so you're like, okay, so we kind of reversed, and I'm not trying to be that guy, because on this panel, I could see why someone might think that it's essentially forced slavery at some point. So now you go to this. So now let's go to this guy. You're right. Now it becomes kidnapping and all these other things. But until I feel like he's operating within the gray space of understanding, of not seeing and understanding all of that. So I don't know that he was maliciously being bad as much as just the scenario was not an easy mix and was always going to turn out bad. You know what I mean? Just that's my thought.
There was one manipulative thing he did that really bothered me.
Right on.
And that's when he purposefully gave Data shitty parenting advice to try to point Data toward agreeing to give Lal up.
Absolutely.
This is true.
And to me, if there was any moment where he was a Badmiral, because this was not him trying to just get her to go to Daystrom. This was not him honestly talking to Data about parenting advice. It's him trying to manipulate an android to get so that he gets the result he wants.
That's very
Which, if nothing speaks to Data's humanity more, it's that he can be manipulated. Okay.
We have a fault. And also, it was nice, like, despite all that, they did kind of give him a babyface turn at the end, you know, when he was assisting Data and trying to save Lal's life.
That's true. Yeah, and I think
when he came out, and he was talking to Geordi and Deanna and Wesley, I was kind of tearing up a little hearing the way, like, how hard Data was working to save Lal.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it was, and he's talking about how fast his hands were moving and the whole bit, and it's just like, oh, bro. And I think that's when he realized this was the moment he realized he screwed up. You know what I mean? He's like, wow, I was wrong. Yeah. So yeah,
Halftel is one of the more nuanced of the bunch. I definitely think he's just a bag of dicks on his face, but overall,
on his face, which is
right all over.
Heavy makeup, yeah.
Much like
mixing metaphors there, and it didn't really work so well.
Right on his face.
That's a lower decks thing.
It totally is.
So, yeah, he starts as just, a bag of dicks. And he keeps coming. He will not leave Data alone. And by the end, he shows that he has a soul, though.
Yeah.
Right.
But here's a couple of things. One thing people don't seem to remember about the ending of Measure of a Man is in that court, the judge, Philippa, did not make this a precedent. She just gave Data the ability to choose what he wanted. She purposely said she's not extending that to other things. She's basically like kicking it back to the Starfleet Congress and saying, hey, you guys gotta look into this and make some real law that makes sense. So is it within Starfleet's right to possibly take Lal? Yes. Does it really make any sense as hard as this guy is going at Data? No. And it doesn't redeem him even when he's like Mr. Know-It-All was talking about the stuff at the end where he's like crying and talking about Data.
Right.
And fixing Lal. Overall, definitely a Badmiral.
Yeah.
Even though he's nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just doing all those dicks on his face. I'm sorry. That's a picture to stay with me all day.
The virtual intelligence of Mass Effect versus True AI like Data.
I think yes and no. I think yes and no. I think they eventually had to have some measure of autonomy to be able to function the way they do and interact the way they did. But yeah, probably more. I think they're less than Data. I'll go with that. Or could they possibly just be young like Data was in the beginning? Like, was Data like that in the beginning? Would they have eventually, if given the opportunity? See, now we're talking into hypotheticals that I'm like, sorry, that's not the topic. That's not the topic. We can definitely talk about that some other time, though. Go on. I'm sorry.
Okay, I want to talk about the right thing or wrong thing for the right reasons. Rear Admiral Nora Sati from the Drumhead.
This is not my favorite episode.
No,
I find it very contentious and makes me kind of anxious. So I did watch it, but it's hard for me not just to dislike her and just dislike her for being her.
Yeah, that's the problem, because from what we know, she had a really distinguished career.
Yeah.
And then when she's brought back to Starfleet, it's like, oh, I'm going to try and reinsert my muscle and take things on, and goes headlong into a witch hunt.
Yep.
I don't even think she meant to get into. She saw that light of, oh, people are paying attention to me again. Let's keep this going.
And they're not telling me that I'm wrong.
Ugh,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
So she definitely, what we saw of her in that episode, she is a Badmiral. What we know of her overall, probably not.
She reminded me of the Battlestar Galactica when they have to first, and the guy gives them like free leave to have a tribunal, and they start going on a witch hunt. She reminds, like, she started seeing shadows everywhere, this lady, and you're like, dude, man, you gotta back down. Because this is because there's, if you want to find something wrong, you will find something wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And she was determined to find no matter what shadows they lived in. She probably reminds me more of Marcus than anything else. Like, I could see her building an evil dark starship to facilitate the ends and justifying her means,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you dig in anyone's skeleton deep enough, wow, didn't get that metaphor right at all. If you dig in anyone's closet deep enough, you're going to find a skeleton.
Bone marrow is tasty.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of what she wasn't doing was, examining context. It was kind of like this whole, the whole link between like Tarsus and Worf and Picard, it's just like she heard that the word Romulan was involved, and it's like, red flag.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. I don't envy her being taken down by Picard in her dad's own words, though.
Absolutely. Oh, that was awesome.
That's absolutely perfect.
It's
one of my favorite episodes of TNG.
Mm-hmm. And you could see how fast everything just slips from her right then.
Yep.
Everything slips, and you're just like, "Ooh, honey," you feel bad. You're like, "Oh, sit down. You don't look good anymore."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons also that I find difficulty with this episode, as someone who is rapidly facing senior citizenship, the idea of aging out of your job. And the idea that it could just be that she's been doing this for too long. She wants to jump to the end. So she's kind of skimming over all of the research to get to the end that she wants, that she thinks will reassert her as a powerful figure in the Admiralty. And I feel like there's a lot of that, especially when the father stuff comes into play.
Right.
Is this idea of like, have I lived my life in relative terms to what my dad believed in, or have I not?
Okay. Yeah.
Chasing your parents' legacy or the mission they put you on too long to the point you've kind of lost that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
That's really
great
thoughts.
Great point. See, this is why we have you on, Del. All the stuff you used to do in the comments, now you're doing here.
Thank you, Del.
Thanks.
Good call, man. I love it.
Okay, moving on. Yes. Admiral Eric Pressman of the Pegasus. Now, I'll be the first to admit, when I came up with this topic, I obviously couldn't remember, every admiral in Starfleet. So I was literally looking up bad admirals, and Pressman's name keeps coming up on the list. But I mean, not only did he do what he did when he was a captain, he couldn't possibly have done this alone. We're talking about violating a treaty by developing cloaking technology for the Federation. It's not like he could have done that by himself. So when he's going on, on and on to Riker about how, used to be a soldier who, followed orders, and he was really just following orders himself.
Do we think that he was some sort of adjunct or type of Section 31? Could they have been potentially?
We talked about that last week.
I was going to say, that's what I thought. Could he have been part of that underneath that? Even though they don't really blatantly, because they hadn't really been brought up yet. But I mean, that would, but I could totally see that. And if you were to go back and look through and go, okay, if they've been around for a while, this guy easily was either being manipulated by them or worked for them and was like, I can't say the words, otherwise they'll take me out. I'd rather go down than let them down. But yeah, man, I could totally see that.
He had cover. I mean, he was actually in Starfleet intelligence at the time.
At the
I feel
very
like
least,
also. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, at the very least, Section 31 had something to do with the Pegasus. Definitely.
Right.
Agreed. They were ticked off that their Admiral Marcus evil ship didn't. No, I'm kidding.
Oh no.
Oh, so one of the things I was thinking about with Pressman is the sort of overarching theme in Star Trek of human cost, technological cost, human price, technological price. Because I mean, we start with the idea that a whole bunch of people died on the Pegasus.
Yes,
and that doesn't seem to be his concern in the least. And the fact that the situation could blow up any moment and cause more lives doesn't seem to be his particular point of view. He is focused on the technology, and he's willing to spend human lives to get that technology. And to me, that was really the core of Bad. Was that, and it's a judgment call. Like, for me, it's a judgment call. Like, do I think the people or this technology that could do great things for the Federation in the end, the needs of the many?
Yeah, but I mean, it's still, it's like Heart Attack Jack was just saying. I got to go back and look. Yeah, this episode stinks of high and mighty ideals without seeing the bigger picture for the defense of the Federation. This is true, but also, there's a treaty in place. We're talking about high and mighty ideals. Yes, well, let's uphold the ideals of the Federation and actually, honoring our promises. Except then, we find out, well, we did it anyway. We just weren't going to tell anybody. Well, on a slightly lesser note I'm sorry, Mr. Noto. Oh no, you're not frozen. I really thought for a second.
I'm so sorry. So I got right down the rabbit hole. I'm looking at the episode. I was looking at the episode summary for the Pegasus episode, and I went down the rabbit hole looking. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just worried that you stuck for a second.
No, I'm here. I promise. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on. Yes. Admiral Mark Jameson, Too Short a Season.
Yeah, man.
This is another one of those ones where, he did what he did before he was an admiral.
He wasn't on my list. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I love that makeup. It makes him look like McCoy in the pilot.
It totally did.
It does.
Dude, absolutely it does.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, he had to, back in the day, he was doing negotiations to release hostages on Mordan 4. And his brilliant solution, which nobody knew because he falsified the records, which does technically land him in Badmiral territory, was to give weapons to both sides. And granted, he didn't know it was going to kick off a decades-long civil war. And this episode is about him going back to try to fix what he did. Again, this was just another one where, I was looking through the list and it's like, okay, Jameson's on this list. Let's look into that.
Yeah,
no,
man.
he's like the OG Badmiral.
Absolutely,
that we first saw in the first season.
Right.
And granted, like you said, it was before he was an admiral, but what he did to give weapons to a planet and then give even more weapons to the other side, thinking that that's somehow prime directive material. Yeah, he's definitely right up there with the worst Merles.
Yeah,
there it is.
Well, and I also think, at least from my memory of it, I lost my point. Sorry. Go on.
No, totally. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, man. I feel like he's one of those characters that he's trying so hard to the point of making himself younger to try to make up for this failure. But it's one of those things where you're like, I could have even forgiven the failure. I could have been like, hey, dude, no, the past, I get it. It's this and that. But it's the fact he's willing to go through all these equally horrible ends now, things now, to try to fix the horrible. That's like, bro, this is it's bad and bad. You're trying to make good something with bad and you can't. That's really he's bad on multiple levels. I don't think he's evil per se, but I think, God, dude, you got to realize at some point, own your crap and move on, because this trying to make things right by making things worse.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I mean, at least right at the end, like when he died, Karnas, the administrator or whatever it was, Mordanfor, the one who wanted him back in the first place and set up the whole thing, he was showing him mercy at the end. He didn't denigrate his name after watching him die in front of him. He just said, rest and be at peace.
Right.
So he did have. So I mean, at least he had a little. What I'm looking for. I never find the right word. I don't know. A little respect from his enemies, let's say. Yeah, from his enemies.
I remembered my point from earlier.
Okay.
When did this episode air?
1987.
So my point would be before or after Gene Roddenberry died.
Before, I think.
Before.
Yeah. Right, because I feel like, and I think I felt like when I first saw it, that this was one of the first hints of there being a non-utopian federation or a non-utopian Starfleet.
Yeah.
Is because this was the very first time we saw a uniformed on TNG make what we would consider to be immoral decisions or bad decisions that come in friction with Starfleet ideals. And so I feel like that's why I wanted to know if it was before or after Gene Roddenberry died. Because I know that before he died, he was really fighting that tooth and nail. He wanted there to be a utopia, like no one fought in Starfleet. And I think this is the beginning of seeing that Starfleet could be more nuanced. That was my point.
I think absolutely. No, that was a great point, by the way. Thank you. I mean, seriously, that was absolutely. And I feel like that's exactly why you get to, we built on the idea that Starfleet was utopian. And I still think the future, that the Star Trek future is, but I think that nobody wants to look at what would it actually take to get that? What would it actually take to make that future? It would take hard decisions, hard choices. It would, and I could that's one of the reasons why I didn't have a problem when they show us the far-flung future of Discovery, because I'm like, well, what else would happen if things began to break down? We would immediately pull in to try to protect our way of life any way we can. And here on Earth, I mean. And so it's like, okay, now you start to see nobody wants to understand what it does take to hold all this together, if you will. So yeah, that's good call, Dale. Absolutely.
Yeah. And an excellent setup to move into the next Admiral.
Before we move on, can I just wanted to make a point about what Dale said.
Okay.
One of my favorite jokes in Lower Decks is Mariner with this self-actualized joke about, I know we're not supposed to have interpersonal conflicts and stuff. And that's a direct knock at Gene Roddenberry. And I love it.
Yes.
Now you can move on.
Yeah. But yeah, like what does it take to, maintain utopia or even achieve it? And that's where we're going to talk about Admiral Layton. The two-parter of Homefront and Paradise Lost. And this guy broke exactly. Thank you, DAM. Attempted coup of the Federation. The Federation of Starfleet of Earth, you name it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, I don't think it's not just the fact that he did it. It's kind of like the way he went about it. Because you're talking like his use of Red Squad, this like elite group of like young idealistic ensigns who are probably like Riker was when he was talking to Pegasus about like when he served on the ship, he was just out of the academy with the words like duty and honor ringing in his head.
Yeah. And
Layton, yeah, he used that to an extreme degree.
Layton's definitely one of the most interesting admirals of this whole bunch. He did the wrong things for the right reasons. He was absolutely correct that the Federation was not prepared for the all-out war that was coming for the Dominion.
That's so true.
But what he did to get it to turn around is not okay.
No.
Even if it's exactly what needed to happen in the aftermath of his failed coup.
Yeah, I go with that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's definitely bad, but he's the most nuanced.
Well, I also sometimes you get those people like that who are like, look, nobody's gonna listen to the fact that they're all like he feels that's such conviction. He's like, if this is gonna go bad, we're not ready. We need to get ready. So how do I get people ready? Well, I guess I need to smack them in the face. You know what I mean? Or something like, and suddenly be like, get ready. You're gonna throw me in jail? Fine. But at least you're looking at me right now. Get ready. You know what I mean? I get it. I get it. Even if it's rough, but I get it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was the character or the actor or the script, but I also found him to be one of the more charismatic bad admirals, like someone who knew they were doing something untoward, but could still put on ingratiating is the only word I can think of, and it's not the one I mean.
Yeah.
But like this idea of putting on a show for everyone about what a great and caring and involved person he is in this process, when in fact that's all horse poop. But everyone buys it because he's so charismatic.
Yeah. He's got that smile so charming you never notice the knife he's holding behind his back.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. And Red Squad always reminded me of the jocks from high school. Arrogant, self-absorbed, centered, and basically the definition of idiot.
Well, and who else, and who better to quote unquote, I mean, who else did you want? Because at the end of the day, scientists weren't going to get you out of the problem in his estimation. You know, scientists, peacemakers, you needed somebody to be who was willing and able and capable. So he was like, let's filter all the ones who would normally be filtered out to go play, you know, damjad or sports ball. You know, let's get them to be the ones who are here, and we'll put a gun in their hands and say, go defend, go be strong, go do that thing you do. You know what I mean? And it's wrong mentality, but I get it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to play Ambo Jitsu.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
So yeah, that leads to the question, is Leighton's resignation at the end an acknowledgement that he knows he's a Badmiral?
I think so. I definitely think so.
I think so, but I think that's what makes him not. Because he knew enough to go, yes, I've done bad things. Now that you've seen me, now that you've seen and you understand and you're hearing me, I'm going to resign because I've had to do things I am not happy I am not happy about, that go against the values that I'm trying to save, but it's the only way I could get you guys to pay attention. But now I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like versus somebody who got caught versus somebody else who got caught. And like the other, like the previous, forgive me, the old guy with the bad makeup who looked like McCoy.
Jameson.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta double down, I gotta keep going, I gotta keep this and that. This guy was like, all right, I'm out. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay. To me, I feel like that's what puts him in the place of, at least he knew enough to know he knew enough to be ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's fair. I can not tolerate, but I can deal with that better than I can deal with somebody who doubles down on, well, all of you are going to die and blah, 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 and screw you, and gets fired versus someone
Although
who,
I do think that like 5% of it was he got caught.
oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, that he
Totally
got caught and there was no other response to getting caught other than to resign.
Yeah, you got me.
You got me.
Mic drop.
Yeah. Now, what was that comment that was just up, Dustin? Leighton upgraded the Lakota, so why not prepare in the background? That's fair, but I think, oh my gosh, that's right. I think in a way, Leighton might have wanted this to happen. Like, he wanted it to happen this way because all the personnel that were being moving, all the personnel that were being moving around, like, they're key figures that almost all directly served under Leighton. Like, he wanted that loyalty to him. So,
and he wanted to be the top of the chain.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Wow, yeah. Yeah. I had never thought of it that way. You're absolutely right.
Totally forgotten.
He is a little more self-centered than you think. You're
right. It's very what's that club, the Skull and Bones, like fraternity type thing, where it's like, all right, you guys are gonna do great. I'm gonna send you off. When I need you, let's make sure you're here for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Slimy now. See, now I'm like, no, Turner, he's totally got caught.
Right. Okay, so a little later on, the Dominion War is basically in full swing, and that brings us to Admiral Todman. of the die is cast. Honestly, there's a little bit less to this, really, because I mean, yeah.
That's Admiral Bill.
Sorry,
That's not Admiral Bill.
It might be. I know you're talking about from
It's the
Star
same
Trek
actor.
6.
It's totally
it's the same actor. Yeah, I think that's actually mentioned in Memory Alpha. I think it says there that also that they cast the same actor to imply a relationship between the two.
Oh, cool. Right on. Which is totally
Yeah.
they've done that before, so right on.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely don't. I don't think Todman's a Badmiral. He had the Defiant sabotaged because Sisko was defying his orders.
Yeah.
I get that.
So we don't do court martials anymore. We just blow up your ship.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't blowing up. I guess it could have resulted in that, but he just had Eddington disable the cloaking device.
In the middle of the beginning of a war. I don't know. It felt much more dirty to me.
They were like on the other side of the wormhole, though. They could have turned back at that point, which was his point.
Which was
just do enough damage to make him turn back.
Yeah.
I don't think she sounds convinced.
No,
right on.
He's definitely not convinced.
I will say one thing. It has kind of nothing to do with this, but Dustin, in reference to that last video you made about bad Starfleet ships, I couldn't help noticing when I was watching this episode. I know it's not a Starfleet ship, but the Keldon class Cardassian ship is just so ugly.
Yes.
Oh my gosh!
Like
especially next to a Romulan warbird, which is actually a beautiful ship. You just got these fleet of nice looking ships and ugly ships all headed into the wormhole at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a whole one on other races ships besides Starfleet too. And
Nice.
I'm with you. I think the Cardassians are probably gonna be down there.
I will not be surprised. So would we say it's a wrong thing for the right reasons, though? Because he really wants... Because obviously Todman really... he just wants Sisko and the Defiant to follow orders. It's like, oh, you're not going to follow orders? Yeah, you're not going to be able to use your ship.
I might even go so far as to say right things for the right reasons.
Okay.
Okay. I'm with you, too. I can see that.
Yeah. Although in the end, they were there to save Garrick and Odo in the end, so... And we need some Garrick and Odo. And I love in that episode that kind of ended with them becoming closer. Like when right at the end, Garrick's looking over the wreckage of his shop and Odo's like, we should have breakfast sometimes. Like, I didn't think you ate. Like, I don't. I just like that. Sisko attacked because of that war. He wouldn't back off. In the alternate timeline, the Klingons took over the station and the Dominion stayed on their side.
But isn't that because they're not aware of the wormhole in the mirror universe? I believe that's the thing. Because they even when Kira and Bashir came out of it in the first DS9 Mirror Universe episode, they were very surprised. They didn't know where they came from, and in theory, they didn't even know that they went back into it.
Right.
Way off topic, but I think I believe that's the case.
Okay. Often say that, Robbie.
That's what I said last week. And look what happened to me. Be careful.
Oh, Robbie's been on here before. It's just a scheduling conflict, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was supposed to be here this morning on screen with us.
Yeah. Wait, but what? But
sorry, that was me.
That's okay. They were tethered together. What was the one before this? It wasn't mirrors when Sisko jumped. It was in the Visitor.
Oh,
okay.
I see what he's talking about now.
Right. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna need your guys' help on this because once again, I did not do my Voyager homework.
I got most of the Voyager ones.
Huh?
I got most of the Voyager ones.
The last one I got here is Admiral Bullock. And I literally don't know the circumstances. That was all me.
All right. So the episode is the one when the Voyager crew finds the fake Starfleet Academy that's all created by 8472.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the one where Chakotay goes on a date with an 8472 and he kind of knows what she is. And is still trying to figure out what's going on. That's the episode. And in there, Bullock is an 8472 acting as an admiral. And in the beginning, when they don't know that it's a recreation, although they do because they're in the Delta Quadrant, but you know what I mean. I mean, they're doing what these people tell them to do, and they're like falling into hierarchy when in fact they're surrounded by, I guess, what you would call the enemy. So I think in the way that this was back when I was thinking, like, we have many versions of bad. I mean, this is just a villain wearing a Starfleet suit. And by that, I mean like the whole way, like Edgar's suit.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, where he's not a real Starfleet Admiral, but he's trying to portray as closely as possible a Starfleet Admiral. His portrayal is great.
And real. I mean, because
Boothby
Boothby was viable, so I assume there's a real Admiral Pressman somewhere, or not Pressman.
Okay.
Bullock.
Oh, Admiral
Bullock, yeah. There is a real Admiral
Probably
Bullock
is.
somewhere. It's just not this guy.
Right.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, wish I could add to that, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's not much
Well,
to say
that's
about
all
it.
on me, as usual. Not doing my Voyager homework. Yeah, I'd say we got time. Let's go. I mean, move past Admiral a little bit into Commodore O and Picard.
Yeah, man.
After Marcus, I would have to say she is probably the second worst Badmiral, and maybe even the worst. She caused a lot of suffering, a lot of death, set Starfleet back years, which was her job as a plant from the Romulans.
Unfortunately,
I find it really interesting. I got thinking about this just this morning, that Section 31 got somebody at the top of Romulan intelligence, and the Romulans have somebody at the top of Starfleet intelligence. That's really bizarre.
everyone's just
neither side is like aware apparently of that. Whatever.
Right.
right.
So sidebar about the actress. Right at the same time this dropped, Cobra Kai brought out the season where they went back to Japan, and this actress played the older version of the young lady from that one Karate Kid one. So I'm sitting here going, boy, this actress suddenly got all kinds of stuff happening this year. So she was this character, she was that. It was great. Anyways, but yeah. So do we know that she went up the ranks for the right way? Like, is that how deep that plant went, or
that was what was alluded to?
Okay,
Yeah.
So she had to pretend to be Vulcan the whole time.
That's one long game.
Yeah, man, she's a worst.
They actually said she was a half Vulcan, so she had some Vulcan blood.
What is that? That's like me saying I'm half black. I mean, what does that even mean? I'm half Vulcan. Oh, okay. So your ears aren't quite as pointy. I don't.
Yeah.
Or you don't have that little dip like the Romulans had in TNG, you know, in their foreheads. But yeah, man, no, she was. I didn't like her at all. I thought, I thought she was terrible as a person. She's just, and I guess they wear shades in the future still, which I thought was cool. Even Starfleet Intelligence,
Right.
When she goes to meet with what's her face, she like puts on these shades, and I was like, oh, okay, there you go. I love it.
I'm totally a good person. I'm covering up my eyes for a very important conversation. I am obviously good.
Right on, man.
Right.
Oh, too funny.
Okay.
One
so
of the oddest things about this picture here,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can actually zoom in on it nicely,
Ooh.
but if you look at the rank pip, it's sideways. Somebody really did not take a whole lot of time. Yeah, I can't really blow it up enough.
Okay.
But her rank pip is like, it's ajar. It's like the only time in Star Trek where something like this, it's so off. I've noticed it ever since the first time I watched it.
It's like, oh my God, I feel like some costumer was like, here's the ring pin, it goes on their chest. And they're like, okay, gotcha. And I mean, like, what are you doing?
Someone forgot their Polaroids.
Yep. Okay. So I think we covered Stalker before. So skip ahead to last up, Buen Amigo.
I have a couple others on the list.
Okay, what do you got? We're here.
We had on the original list there was Nechayev, Ross, who I really want to talk about, Leonard from Enterprise, from the very first episode.
Oh, yeah.
Buen Amigo from Lower Decks, Wong from Lower Decks,
Right.
Clancy from Picard.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading off what the
You must
list
look
I
at that
had
first list that I put out before it got revised by Scott.
Yeah, but any of those, I have notes. I really want to talk about Ross.
I don't have a picture, but let's talk about Ross.
Yeah, so did I. But I mean, like we talked about him before in the Section 31 episode, and got kind of convinced along the way that maybe he wasn't so bad. But yeah, I'm totally there with you, Del, because the idea of can't talk about Ross without Rachel.
I'm imagining a Voyager Friends crossover. I don't know why it has to be Voyager, but in my head.
I can hear the Friends theme playing over the Voyager soaring through space.
All right, someone who's talented in
with
video.
everybody turning, like, looking at the camera with their
Oh
my gosh, that's great. I love it.
Okay.
All drinking Raccachinos.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So my thought on Ross is that he's sort of the opposite of a lot of the other admirals that we look at, in that I think he comes across as a good, moral, law-abiding admiral who just gets sucked into war. And the idea that war is never black and white, and that the good guys are going to have to compromise their morals as much as the bad guys are going to have to compromise their plans. And so I feel like in this case, he's a good guy who just gets pulled down into the doldrums of war and is doing the best to try to stay good, while still saving the Federation from the Dominion.
Yeah, and if you got to sacrifice an asset to protect an asset, apparently that's okay.
Yeah, he is the top frontline admiral of the war. Yep. And he's got to make some really hard, tough, gray area calls, and his involvement with Section 31 and some minor weirdery. Overall, I'd still say he's one of the best admirals, because that's kind of the mission statement of an admiral. They've got to be able to take those tough jobs and make those tough calls in the hard times. And I think he does it in a really, really good fashion.
But I could see how some people would turn this around and say, no, he's a bad guy because he gave in.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see it both ways. But I feel like the way that I interpreted it is that it's a good guy trying his best to both win a war and stay within his own morality, and it's just not happening.
Yeah, when all else fails, he quotes Latin, which I still can't say the name of that episode because I'm pretty sure it was like 5 words, and I'm missing one of them when I think about it. But when it translates to "in time of war," thank you. Inter arma einem senet liges. In time of war, the law stands silent.
Mm-hmm.
Which, oddly enough, kind of feels like a callback to the drumhead, like when Picard was explaining what a drumhead trial was, how it's basically a kangaroo court on a battlefield. I don't know. Okay, so I don't know. Couple more ended, or
can we talk about Wong and Buen Amigo, just because we haven't talked about Lower Decks at all?
For sure.
I honestly don't remember having a problem with Admiral Wong. I can't even remember. Like, your thing said it was she was dressing down Freeman.
She was the one. She was like the head of that panel of admirals and
Oh,
captains at
right.
the end of season 3 that was
Yep.
giving Buen Amigo the go ahead to, all right, the Texas class is going to replace the California. And she talks down to Freeman, and that's really her only fault. She's much like Ross, just kind of doing her job. She's
Yep.
kind of a bitch about it at times.
I was going to
but,
say the word that comes
you
to mind for
know,
me is she's a bitch. That doesn't mean that she's a
sometimes
bad
you
admiral.
have to
She's just a
use it.
bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But as an
did-
admiral,
Yeah, I
an
think
admiral, she's
the
pretty good.
same thing about Clancy. You know, in Picard, Clancy was literally just doing her job, and I think a lot of what people didn't like about it is like, oh, you're not going to let Picard do whatever he wants. He's freaking Jean-Luc Picard. But she's like, yeah, you're not even a part of Starfleet anymore. Why am I going to give you a ship?
But I did really like that the very first time we meet Wong is that she's yanking Freeman off of an actual mission, and she says something about bringing gifts, and Freeman says, "So you're telling me I have to go give out diplomatic trinkets?" And I loved that phraseology in the episode was
right.
diplomatic trinkets. But yeah, the idea that from the very first thing that we see from her is her being a bitch to Freeman.
Yeah, I'm sure she'd be like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But yeah, she was pretty instrumental in giving, you know, Buen Amigo the green light. So, but obviously, like, even from
Probably not.
no, bitch is probably not part of Gene's perfect utopia.
Oh, I bet he used the word though.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, as we see, like, even from this clip, Buen Amigo's plan was a long time in the making. And obviously he didn't have bad intentions. Like, he was just saying he just wanted to be able to stand out, because once you get to a certain point, what can you do to, I don't know, secure your legacy or be remembered? But he did, you know, go ahead and tamper with Rutherford's mind to the point where it's still affecting him. This is like supposed to be a decade later, like the present for them.
I think so.
Yeah. And presumably he didn't realize that, you know, using Rutherford's code was going to basically, you know, bring back Badgie.
I will burn your heart in a fire.
I love that.
Oh, I want a Badgie so bad.
Love Badgie, yeah.
I play that game. There's a game with Badgie in it.
What?
You haven't seen the mobile game?
No.
Oh my god! Hang on,
Oh.
there's a Star Trek Lower Decks mobile game.
Kind on tie-in media, yeah.
1 second. 1 second.
All right.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
It's literally a game where your Badgie sticks. You're stuck in a holodeck, and you got to. But there was. Speaking of which, there was an admiral who got sucked into the holodeck with you, and they're literally just choosing off characters from the game or from the show. And he at one point takes command of the holodeck version of the Cerritos from Boimler, because Boimler's been basically playing captain this whole time. And starts ordering them around to do stuff, and then finally Badgie like doesn't like him at all, and so the others are like, all right, we'll take command back. You just go back to doing the things you're supposed to do. It's really funny. Anyway, go on. Sorry,
Yeah.
Didn't mean to take us on that tangent.
No, that's fine. Well, I think that leads us to, you know, the ultimate question: who is the worst Merle?
I think I know Dustin's vote.
Yeah, Marcus. I think it's easily Marcus. He caused more. Oh God! But then there's O. It's really close between him and O. I mean, he took out all of Starfleet's top brass, but she took out more people overall over time and set Starfleet back further.
Yeah, and I think we'll make the case for Leighton. Maybe it's
so
because,
close.
you know, maybe it's because in recent history we've seen an attempted coup. Maybe I'm a little more sensitive to it, and you know, his coup was basically like, you know, the attempt to take over of Earth.
Yeah,
And by
Leighton
extension,
is
probably
pretty
Earth.
high on my list.
See, I feel like The reason I have to live in Dustin's camp in this one is because as much as I love him, I love the concept of Marcus and kind of those things, some of those aspects of the character in terms of a villain, how they built him and whatnot. And again, I believe he probably started from a place of wanting to help and sort of a fear, almost a Red Scare type thing where it's like, oh my God, things are so bad, we have to be ready. But then he evolved into, Kirk flat out says, what's the one thing that this act would do? Get all of us in this room. Yep. So that speaks to premeditation, that speaks to planning, that speaks to all laying the groundwork that ultimately leads to him eventually not giving a damn about killing everybody on the Enterprise. If gotta break some eggs and blah blah blah. So yeah, I kind of got to lean with Marcus on this one as well. And I wasn't at first, though. You convinced me for sure.
Yeah. And you've just convinced me that it is Marcus and not O, because O is at least doing the job that she was put in there to do. Fair. It's not good for the Federation, but she's at least doing the job she was meant to do. Marcus, he's just doing his own damn thing.
Yeah, he just kind of flies off the handle at some point. So, right on.
Okay. I think, yeah. Say it. Admiral Alexander Marcus, the worst Merle.
The worst Merle.
RoboCop broke so bad.
He did. Why?
There's been another Prime Directive in there. Oh, that's right. Like his RoboCop's thing was like, he had to obey his Prime directives. Oh my gosh.
It all comes full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap up, we never even talked about this, but I think we need to ask the question: who is your favorite admiral?
Oh, I don't know if it was because you had a picture of him up there, and I was gonna start debating like crazy if we talked about it, but probably Admiral Vance.
Yeah,
I was heading in that direction. He was on the list in my head.
Yeah,
I like Vance a lot.
I do too. We're
trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
He's the admiral.
It's the sign of an admiral who can actually stay moral and be in a war.
Right.
Right on, man. No, yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad he's not one of those people who's like, oh, you guys shouldn't be doing stuff. Like he's just like, oh, y'all, no, we're recommissioning y'all going right at, get back out there, change your uniforms and get back out there. So right on, man.
Here's a bag of programmable matter. Go.
Literally, legit.
And for me, the second place would come out of Discovery also with Cornwell. She went out like a badass.
She did. Mm-hmm. I loved her so much.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say the Admirals are getting better in more recent shows because you got Vance and Cornwell, and then if you're gonna have a third, like I don't know if they're planning to, break him yet, but Admiral April in Stranger Worlds.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth about whether he deserved to be on the bad list or the good list. Only because I think personally having someone who is of higher rank show up at my house and say, no, you're not retired. You're going back to work and you're going back to work in 12 hours.
Meow.
Like there's a lot of other ways you could have approached that.
Agreed.
That's fair.
I haven't seen the animated series version, so I don't know what that was like.
Right.
It's one of the better animated series episodes.
Okay, so we rank them from Vance down to Marcus then? Not right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We know who's the best. We know who's the worst.
Agreed.
Yeah, but I think now done everything else. Time for the best meme of the week.
Oh yeah, we have one of those. We have two of those because we can never actually decide. So tied again this week, starting with The Shining.
Oh, it makes so much sense.
I know you're thinking about me, Jean-Luc.
That's awesome. I love that one.
Pretty great. And
I know she'd never refer to him that way, but it would actually made sense for her to poke her head to be like, "Oh, here's Johnny." And then
live fast and get fucked or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that one. I think that one's a little bit funnier. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think we can wrap up. Unless anybody has any other questions.
No, I don't think so.
No, I'm good. You guys, dude, this is fun. This is awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
so happy to have you join us. It was so
Yeah,
much
absolutely.
fun, man.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We hope you come back often.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm working on my essay, so hopefully that will happen at some point.
Very cool.
Wonderful.
Right. Well, we hope you've all enjoyed enjoyed watching the show. Obviously, do the YouTube stuff, leave a like, comment around, share around. Please subscribe to the channel. This is a great channel. I've been subscribed for a long time and very happy to be here. And what was it we were talking about next week? What was the topic? I can't remember.
It's,
Goofy Trek.
Yeah, humor in Star Trek and the Orville. We're going off track here.
Do a little comparison. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll hopefully see you all next week. And until then, peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.